Hello everyone, welcome back to another explosive episode of Nuclear Revenge, the series where justice isn't just served, it's obliterated. Here we dive into the most extreme stories of revenge, the kind that scorches earth and leaves no bridges unburned. Today I've got 3 jaw-dropping tales that redefine payback. This first story's titled "This Bitch Cheated on Me with the Boss." They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I prefer it served clinical, measured, dissected, and executed like a surgical strike. Because when someone dismantles your life brick by brick, you don't just return the favor. You design an entire architecture of destruction. And then, you make them live in it. My name's Marcus. At 37, I'd built a decent life. I was a senior structural engineer at a firm in Chicago, married for 8 years to a woman I thought I knew, and father to a 6-year-old boy who made waking up each day worth it. My colleagues respected me, I mentored younger staff, and I was on track for a directorship. I wasn't chasing yachts or golf memberships. I just wanted stability, safety, family. Funny how all three can vanish at a single moment. It started with a promotion. Not mine, hers. Amanda had just been made VP of Communications at her firm. She came home glowing, champagne already on her breath. I held our son, Lucas, as she danced around the kitchen barefoot, laughing. It was one of those movie scene nights, the kind you remember later with bile in your throat. 6 months later, I found out that promotion had come with strings attached, namely, her boss, Grayson Willoughby. I didn't find out because she slipped up. She never would have. Amanda was methodical. I found out because Lucas had drawn a picture. We were sitting at the kitchen table. He handed me a stick figure drawing Amanda, him, and a tall man I didn't recognize. Above it, in that innocent scrawl, "Mommy, me, Mr. G at the hotel." I froze. I asked him when that was. He said last week. I pressed him gently. He said they were getting snacks and sleep while I was doing blueprints. I wanted to vomit. I didn't confront her that night, or the next. Instead, I did what I do best. I started drawing a plan. Step 1 was information. I hired a PI. She was discreet, old school, and thorough. Within a week, I had photos Amanda and Grayson entering a suite at the Talcott downtown, twice in 1 week. I got timestamps, receipts, even a recording of them kissing in the elevator. I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I archived everything, because this wasn't going to be a fight. It was going to be a demolition. Amanda didn't know I knew. For 3 months, I lived a double life. I made her coffee in the morning. I bathed our son while she stayed late. But every free moment I had, I spent plotting. A man with my access, skills, and connections doesn't just retaliate. He rewires the foundation. Grayson was the first target. CEO of a boutique PR firm specializing in crisis management. Married, 3 daughters. Publicly moral, full of canned statements about integrity and family. Privately, a snake. I didn't just want to expose him. I wanted to ruin his house of cards. I started with whispers. A data leak at a minor client of his was enough to draw scrutiny from a state regulator. Not enough to implicate him, but enough to make his investors skittish. I knew one of his board members from an old university project. I invited him to a lunch under the pretense of a corporate contract. I casually dropped that I'd heard rumors, nothing serious, of course, about conflicts of interest at Grayson's firm. By the following week, a formal audit was initiated. Amanda, meanwhile, had no clue. I planted a few bugs at home. I listened to her coo into the phone about Grayson. She told him I was a good dad, but boring. She joked that she had to fake enthusiasm when we had sex. That one hit like a gut punch. Still, I said nothing. Instead, I began to move money. Quietly, methodically. Our joint accounts began draining into a shell company I created under my cousin's name. Stocks, bonds, savings, all legally converted, all invisible to her unless she knew what to look for. I made sure she didn't. I set up a trust for Lucas. Ironclad. Protected from marital dispute. Every legal backdoor Amanda might have used was closed before she even knew a door existed. The night before the explosion, I made dinner. Her favorite, filet mignon, roasted asparagus, and that dumb red blend she loved. We toasted her big quarter at work. She joked about celebrating after Lucas went to bed. We did. I let her feel in control. I let her believe the lie one last time. Then I got up at 4 a.m., kissed my son's forehead, and left. The bomb dropped at 9:07 a.m. sharp. Amanda arrived at work to find her emails inaccessible. Her name removed from the directory. 2 HR reps escorted her to a conference room where a legal team showed her a dossier of her affair, dates, photos, even the hotel bills that had been paid with a company card. She was terminated for gross misconduct. No severance. That same hour, Grayson's firm was served with a formal notice of investigation for ethics violations. An anonymous source, me, had provided evidence that he used his position to procure and maintain an affair with a subordinate. One of his competitors was already sniffing around his top clients. By noon, the media got hold of it. But that wasn't the worst part for Amanda. She came home to find an empty house. Lucas was gone. So was every trace of me. A note on the kitchen counter read, "You'll hear from my lawyer by Monday." She tried to call. I had changed my number. Tried my parents, they stonewalled her. Tried her friends, some sympathized, but none helped. Amanda's world collapsed with the same precision she used to dismantle mine. And it was only the beginning. Amanda's lawyer called Monday morning, clearly rattled. I had anticipated every argument. I had documentation, her infidelity, her misuse of funds, her parental negligence while she vacationed with Grayson. I had timestamps showing our son left in the care of her mother for days while she disappeared. Judges don't like when mothers shirk responsibilities for hotel trysts. Our divorce filing was stacked. The trust I'd set up for Lucas was untouchable. My lawyer described it as a legal fortress. She'd walk away with her car, her personal belongings, and a scorched reputation. I offered her the chance to forego contesting custody in exchange for us not going public with the entire PI folder. She caved quickly. Grayson, meanwhile, was disintegrating. His wife had filed for divorce the same day Amanda lost her job. She had been given the same dossier, gift wrapped in a manila envelope with no return address. Within 2 weeks, Grayson was removed as CEO pending investigation. His assets were frozen pending civil litigation, and one of his oldest clients had just signed with a rival PR firm, whose board happened to include an old friend of mine. I wasn't done. Remember those personal emails between Amanda and Grayson I'd intercepted? I leaked the most salacious ones anonymously to a blogger who'd previously written glowing profiles of their company's supposed culture of integrity. The headline that ran the next day? PR power couple implodes, sex, lies, and severance. Within 48 hours, Amanda's name was trending for all the wrong reasons. Comments poured in. Former colleagues piled on. Everyone loves to watch the mighty fall, especially when they're grinning in LinkedIn photos like Amanda had. She tried reaching out through email, through mutual friends, even showed up at my parents' house. I told everyone the same thing. I don't speak to her unless it's through counsel. That night, Lucas asked me where mommy was. I told him gently, "She's taking some time away, but she still loves you." He nodded, then went back to coloring. For him, the trauma wasn't the affair. It was the nights he sat alone while she laughed with her lover over wine. It was the broken trust of the one person he was supposed to rely on unconditionally. I knew what that kind of damage could do. I had been a child of betrayal myself, so I made sure he never saw me break. Amanda moved in with her sister in Evanston. She got a job in internal comms at a mid-tier firm, making half her former salary. But the whisper campaign followed her. People talk. They remember. Promotions stopped coming. She deleted her social media. Her LinkedIn went stale. She tried to fight for visitation. Once, my attorney produced therapist records showing Lucas had recurring nightmares after staying at her place. Screaming fits. Anxiety. A judge suspended all unsupervised contact for 6 months. That was 2 years ago. She sees him 4 hours every other Sunday now, at a monitored center. Grayson, bankrupt, wife gone, reputation in ashes. Last I heard, he was bartending in a Chicago suburb under an alias. The man who once preached crisis management couldn't manage his own collapse. And me? I moved to Colorado with Lucas last year. I work remotely now, smaller firm, more time with him. Our house is modest, but the backyard opens to a trailhead, and we camp twice a month. He's in therapy. So am I. Not because we're broken, but because we're healing with purpose. Do I regret what I did? Not for a second. Amanda thought she could build an empire on deceit. She forgot who she was married to, a man who understands that when foundations crack, collapse is only a matter of time. I didn't destroy her. I simply stopped holding up the walls. This next story is titled "My Boss Slept with My Fiancée." I wasn't born a predator. I became one. Before the betrayal, before the humiliation, I was just another man navigating the machine, devoted, dependable, invisible. My name is Nathan. I was 42 when it happened. An insurance adjuster. A damn good one, too. I handled high-value claims for a mid-tier firm in Cleveland. Not glamorous, but I made 6 figures, had a modest house, and lived with my fiancée, Lauren. Lauren was everything my quiet life lacked: radiant, bold, the kind of woman who turned heads and knew it. She worked in real estate. I met her during an appraisal dispute. We clashed professionally, then clicked personally. Within a year, she moved into my house. By the second, we were planning a wedding. The first sign should have been how little she cared about the details. I chalked it up to stress. I was willing to carry more than my share of the weight if it meant stability. Security. I didn't know then that I was financing my own humiliation. The day everything fell apart started like any other. I was in the office, dealing with a convoluted fire damage claim. My assistant dropped a large envelope on my desk, standard procedure for claims above $250,000. I opened it casually, not even looking at the sender. Inside were photos. Lauren, in bed, with another man. My brain stuttered. At first, I thought it was some cruel prank until I saw the timestamp. Last Friday, while I was in Dayton on business, there was a note clipped to the top. Thought you should know. He's your regional manager. A friend. The heir left the room. His name was Derek Wallace. Married, 2 kids, and my direct superior for the last 3 years. I knew his patterns, his promotions, his smirk when he gave hollow praise. What I didn't know was that he'd been sleeping with my fiancée for at least 4 months. I didn't go home that night. I didn't answer Lauren's texts. I didn't cry, didn't scream. I sat in my office until the cleaning staff showed up at 2 a.m., staring at those photos like blueprints. Something shifted in me that night. Maybe the naive part of me died. Maybe it was always dormant, waiting. But the man who walked out of that office wasn't just betrayed. He was building something. Lauren didn't know I knew. Not yet. She kissed me when I came home the next morning. I kissed her back. She asked about Dayton. I told her the meetings went well. I needed her comfortable, predictable. That night, while she slept, I backed up her phone. I had her password. She was careless like that. I pulled messages, photos, even voice notes. What I found would have shattered a weaker man. Details of their meetups. Jokes about me. Audio of her moaning his name. It was grotesque. It was fuel. Over the next 3 weeks, I crafted a strategy. Every night, after she fell asleep, I sat in my den with a whiteboard and a bottle of scotch, drafting what I called the policy. A revenge plan not just to hurt them, but to unmake them. Socially, financially, professionally. Derek had everything to lose. A wife with deep pockets, a board seat on a local nonprofit, and a spotless image cultivated over a decade. Lauren? She just landed a position with a luxury development group, one where reputation was everything. Step 1 was information. I already had dirt. I needed leverage. Using my contacts and claims and a burner phone, I dug into Derek's files. He'd closed a suspiciously high number of questionable fire-related policies in the last 18 months, the kind that reeked of fraud. He was laundering risk for side cash, and my company had no idea. Now I did. I compiled evidence, policies, emails, internal approvals, tied every thread. Step 2 was exposure. But not yet. Exposure's only valuable when it serves the endgame. And my endgame wasn't punishment. It was eradication. I hired a PI. Same woman who handled my past divorce, discreet, vicious, surgical. Within 10 days, she had Derek's home address, his kid's school schedule, even the name of the bar he took Lauren to on Thursdays. I started dropping breadcrumbs. A forgotten receipt here, an anonymous email there. Derek grew paranoid. He started snapping at staff, made a junior associate cry during a meeting. Perfect. Unstable predators always self-destruct faster when they think they're being hunted. They were. Lauren, meanwhile, was growing restless. She talked about moving up the wedding date, said we should buy a second property. I played along, even got her to help pick out beachfront listings. Every dollar she thought I was spending was a red herring, part of a financial sinkhole I was building beneath her. I created a fake company, a luxury property investment firm. I used old templates and shell documents to make it look real, hired an actor to play an executive. I invested $150,000 of our savings into a down payment for a fake condo. She signed the wire transfer form without reading the fine print. She just committed wire fraud under my business alias, and I had it all on video. By the time I executed the final phase of my plan, everything was in place: Derek's fraud portfolio, Lauren's forged wire transfer, and a digital cache of betrayal so dense it could bury reputations in concrete. I wasn't angry anymore. I was surgical, precise, a god with a scalpel. I started with Derek. He came into work one Thursday looking like a man who hadn't slept in a week. Sweat stained his collar, and his usual swagger had soured into paranoia. At 11 a.m., a plain envelope appeared in his office. Inside, a printed dossier. Photos of him and Lauren entering a hotel. Copies of fraudulent policies. A letter. I know what you've done. Your wife will too by 5 p.m. It wasn't signed, but it didn't need to be. At 5 p.m., his wife received the same envelope. I didn't have to forge her reaction. She served him divorce papers by the following Monday. But what made it devastating was the inclusion of the fraud documents. She was a board member at a real estate nonprofit that partnered with Derek's firm. By implicating her husband, her reputation and donations were now liabilities. She cut him loose fast. The company's compliance department received an anonymous tip 2 days later. I used a VPN and routed the report through a Swedish server. Inside were policy files and whistleblower-style notes that implicated Derek in criminal financial misconduct. By Friday, he was suspended pending internal investigation. On Saturday, the news broke. A whistleblower leak on a real estate finance blog detailed insurance corruption and named Derek Wallace as a central figure. They didn't source me. They didn't have to. The industry moved fast when blood hit the water. He was finished. Lauren still hadn't felt it hit yet, but it was coming. She returned from a business trip in Miami, glowing. I asked about her presentation. She lied effortlessly, said it went great. I smiled, poured her wine, and mentioned a surprise waiting upstairs. It was a manila envelope. Inside, copies of every message, every photo, and a notarized printout of the wire transfer she signed under my LLC alias. She didn't open it at first. I told her she should, that it would answer questions she didn't know to ask. She read it. Her hands started shaking. "Is this some kind of threat?" she asked. "No," I said calmly. "It's documentation." "For what?" "For the financial fraud complaint I filed. See? That money wasn't yours. It was an asset held by a separate entity. You committed wire fraud, Lauren, and I have the footage." Her face went pale. "You can't prove I can." "I did. And in 5 days, the firm you just joined will receive a tip about it. Unless you resign." Quietly. The silence that followed wasn't human. It was something hollow, something collapsing. I stood. "You have 72 hours to vacate. I've already filed for annulment. I told them you committed fraud. Legally, you'll get nothing. You can keep the clothes you came with." She started crying. "I loved you," she whispered. "No, you loved what I gave you, and now it's gone." I left her in the kitchen with the envelope and walked out. Over the next month, the dominoes fell perfectly. Lauren resigned under vague circumstances. Rumors swirled. One of my friends in corporate HR leaked that she was toxic, possibly criminal. The real estate industry isn't forgiving. She disappeared from LinkedIn, changed her number. Derek's investigation became a federal one. He was indicted on wire fraud and insurance fraud. He lost everything: house, family, career. Last I heard, he was living in a 2-bedroom rental, applying for consulting gigs no one would touch. As for me, I transferred to a West Coast firm, took a position with half the stress and better weather. I hike. I've started dating again. Carefully, slowly, with eyes wide open this time. But the best part? The policy I drafted, the literal document I created as my revenge playbook, is now framed in my home office. No names, just a title: Vengeance is a Calculated Premium. This last story is titled "That Idiot Took My Work and Thought He Would Get Away With It." You know how everyone has that one coworker who just gets under their skin? The kind who smiles too wide, laughs too loud, and always has a backhanded compliment locked and loaded? Mine was Alan. To the world, he was the picture of corporate success: pressed shirts, expensive cologne, just the right amount of stubble. To me, he was a parasite who fed on weakness and opportunity. I worked in a drab gray building full of people who wore masks thicker than their foundation. Alan thrived there. He was one of those guys who could befriend the CEO and the janitor in the same breath, not out of kindness but out of calculated necessity. His charm was a weapon, and his target, I'd learned the hard way, was me. I had worked in operations for 7 years, clawing my way up from temp to mid-level manager. I was never flashy, never loud, but I got results. I was the kind of guy who fixed things, who stayed late without being asked. The kind they said, "We couldn't do this without you," to in passing before moving on to someone shinier. Alan joined 3 years into my tenure. From day one, he eyed my role like a wolf circling a deer too tired to run. I ignored the signs at first. The subtle undermining in meetings, the way he'd accidentally leave my name off email chains, or correct me in front of clients with a knowing smile. I told myself it was just office politics, part of the game. But then came the promotion cycle. There was a new department head position, one I had been unofficially groomed for. My director even hinted at it in our last review. "You've earned this," he said. "Just keep your head down and let the numbers speak." So I did. But apparently, Alan had a louder voice than my numbers. He started showing up earlier than usual, working late, or at least making it look that way. He volunteered for tasks I was already handling, then framed them as collaborative efforts he took the lead on. He'd drop into meetings I wasn't in and casually mention streamlining inefficiencies that happened to be my responsibilities. And then he did the unthinkable. He planted an error in one of my project reports. It was a small thing, a miscalculated inventory figure in a spreadsheet, but it cost the company several $1,000s and a client's trust. I caught the error the next day, but by then, Alan had already flagged it to the higher-ups with a tone of practiced concern. "You know I hate to point fingers," he said in the email, "but this oversight could have been avoided with more attention to detail." I was summoned into a meeting room the next morning. HR was there. So was my director. They weren't firing me, but I was being put on a performance review plan. 3 months, weekly check-ins. One more mistake and I was gone. I knew Alan had set me up. I even found the audit trail in the file showing he had accessed it before the change was made. But when I brought it up, I was told, "Let's focus on moving forward." I went home that night to my 1-bedroom apartment with its second-hand furniture and walls stained by time. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw a man crumbling. I was 38. No wife. No kids. No one to fight for me but me. That was the night something in me snapped. Revenge wasn't immediate. That's not how you make it count. No, first I had to become invisible. I did what they asked. I nodded. I smiled. I took the beatings. And all the while, I watched. I learned. I started documenting everything. Every time Alan contradicted himself, every task he took credit for that I had proof of initiating. I created backups of shared drives. I built a timeline of manipulated files, emails where his fingerprints were all over errors he blamed on others. I befriended IT, finance, and even the guy who refilled the vending machines. People like to talk when you ask the right questions with just enough self-deprecation to seem harmless. Alan, meanwhile, soared. He got the promotion. He moved into the corner office with its fake plants and glass walls. He brought in pastries once a week, sent out motivational quotes. He was untouchable. But Alan had one weakness: his hunger for recognition. He wanted not just success, but admiration. He needed to be the smartest guy in the room, even when he wasn't. So I gave him a chance to prove it. I designed a project, a dummy initiative full of buzzwords and vague goals: cost-saving restructuring of internal workflows through synergistic vertical integration. It meant nothing, but I wrapped it in color-coded charts, performance indicators, and projections so glossy they'd blind a boardroom. I made sure the right people heard me talking about it, just enough that Alan would feel the need to take it over. He did. Of course, not all at once, just casual curiosity at first, then guidance, then leadership. By the end of month 1, he had presented it to the executive team as his own strategic vision. I stepped back and let him run with it. That was phase 1. I knew the trap was set the moment Alan proudly introduced his initiative to the company during the quarterly town hall. He stood up there with his tailored suit, gesturing at slides he barely understood, spouting off projections I had massaged into dreams. Everyone clapped. Our VP nodded thoughtfully. One of the board members even asked for a follow-up. That's when I accelerated phase 2. You see, the numbers Alan was proudly presenting, they were designed to implode. Not right away, that would be too obvious. No, they were time bombs with just enough delay to build confidence and buy-in. I had spent weeks studying operational flows, proposing minor changes with massive ripple effects, hidden redundancies that, on paper, looked like efficiency gains, budget reallocations that stripped funds from critical departments, IT changes that would quietly disable core automations under the guise of streamlining legacy systems. All of it passed under Alan's name. All of it was approved by people who trusted his charm more than they trusted the quiet guy in the corner. I kept my head down, fixed the occasional unexpected glitch to maintain the illusion of loyalty, and waited. 2 months in, the cracks began to show. Client complaints started trickling in. Response times doubled. Finance couldn't reconcile numbers because automated reporting was suddenly missing data. And worst of all, a longtime partner canceled their contract over a botched transition Alan had championed. Still, no one blamed him. He held emergency meetings, blamed legacy staff for resisting change, and doubled down with more reports, more plans, more bullshit. But I was already feeding the fire. I sent anonymous tips to internal audit with attachments. I leaked documents to the compliance department, timing each revelation to coincide with key failures. I sent a private email to our VP with a simple message: if you want to know why everything is falling apart, check the metadata on Alan's reports. Look at who actually created them. The email account was a burner I accessed from a public library. It took 1 week. Internal audit launched a quiet investigation. IT was pulled in. A forensic analysis of the shared drives started. Meanwhile, I made sure I was always available, always helpful. I picked up the pieces Alan left behind, quietly kept systems running just enough to avoid complete collapse. I even got a small note from my supervisor: good job stepping up. I know this has been a tough quarter. Then came the summons. Alan was called into a closed-door meeting on a Tuesday afternoon. He didn't return to his office. By Thursday, his name was gone from the directory. A terse internal memo followed: Alan Thompson is no longer with the company. We thank him for his contributions. No farewell cake, no handshakes, just silence. But I wasn't done. I waited a few days, let the dust settle. Then I pulled out my final card, the external whistleblower report. You see, some of the changes Alan implemented with his initiative technically violated regulatory protocols, especially around data privacy and financial disclosures. I sent a fully documented report to the oversight body, complete with timelines, before and after snapshots, and redline internal policies. The fallout wasn't just internal. The company faced a compliance review. We avoided major fines thanks to proactive internal corrections, but the board was shaken. They cleaned house. My director was replaced. New leadership brought in a consulting firm to restructure everything. Layoffs followed. Survivors were rehired under new contracts. I walked through the rubble like a ghost, untouched. I had already accepted a new role with a rival firm, one that had poached me during the chaos thanks to how well I managed crisis workflows. Before I left, I visited Alan's now abandoned office. I stood there in the empty space where his ego once lived. The silence was delicious. Last I heard, Alan was working freelance, trying to claw back credibility. No one returns his calls. His LinkedIn went quiet. A few of my contacts in HR circles said he's radioactive. As for me, I have my peace, a better job, a team that values me. And every now and then, when I open a certain folder on a USB drive labeled Canary, I remind myself that the best revenge isn't just watching them fall, it's knowing they never saw you coming. And I sleep like a baby.